Hello and welcome everyone to our presentation on immune mechanisms of pulmonary intravascular coagulopathy in COVID-19 patients. In this presentation, we will mostly deal with the mechanism of the pulmonary intravascular coagulopathy and why this outcome becomes worse in old patients. COVID-19 pandemic is associated with acute respiratory distress syndrome and worse outcomes in older patients. The severity of the systemic inflammation in response to the coronavirus is mainly because of the cytokine storm or the macrophage activation syndrome, also known as secondary HLH. A key feature of the secondary HLH is hemophagocytosis and an acute consumptive coagulopathy, leading to disseminated intravascular coagulation or DIC. This is a diagram depicting the secondary HLH. In this, there is associated organomegaly, thrombocytopenia, hemophagocytosis, and DIC, resulting in activation of the bone marrow, lymphoid organs, and hepatic Kupffer cells, and the circulating mononuclear cells, leading to a severe consumptive coagulopathy with low fibrinogen levels and increased fibrinogen degradation. Additionally, the liver dysfunction exacerbates the consumptive coagulopathy. A rapid DIC pattern with hyperfibrinemia reflects generalized hemophagocytosis with erythrocyte degradation sequestration and export with diffuse clotting and bleeding. In COVID-19, the involvement is predominantly pulmonary. It is associated with hemophagocytosis, which is intrapulmonary. However, in early stages, systemic coagulopathy is not a feature. Such intrapulmonary hemophagocytosis, which then drain into the regional nodes, indicate the removal of the extravascular RBCs mediated by activated macrophages, secondary to the vascular injury. A DIC pattern might also develop late in this particular cases rather than early. In early stages, we usually deal with an acute respiratory distress syndrome. This table shows the difference between HLH and the pulmonary intravascular coagulation associated with COVID-19. The HLH is more acute with organomegaly and adenopathy. The pulmonary involvement is only 50%, while in COVID-19 it is subacute with no organomegaly and 100% pulmonary involvement. The presence of thrombosis is only inside the intravascular space, while in HLH it is multi-organ. Apart from that, liver function tends to be decreased in HLH while it is preserved in COVID-19. The anemia, thrombocytopenia are more pronounced in HLH, while there is minimal thrombocytopenia and almost no anemia in COVID-19. The TROP-I levels are more elevated in COVID-19, and hemophagocytosis is seen in bone marrow in the HLH, while in COVID-19 it is seen only in the intrapulmonary region and in the regional lymph nodes. In the lab, the coagulation parameters are deranged, that is PT-APTT is increased in HLH while it is normal in COVID-19. Fibrinogen levels are decreased in HLH while they may be normal or slightly increased in COVID-19. The fibrin degradation product or the D-dimer are increased in both the cases. The ferritin levels are significantly more elevated in HLH, and the hypercytokinemia is also more in HLH. So what is this pulmonary vascular pathology that is present in the COVID-19 patients? This diagram basically shows the difference between the alveolar lung surface involvement in COVID-19 compared to a bronchopneumonia. In COVID-19, because of the increased presence of ACE2 receptors in the type 2 pneumocytes, there is complete involvement of the lungs. While in the Bronchopneumonia, the involvement of the lung is predominantly based on the bronchial tree, resulting in hemorrhagic destruction of the trachea and large airways, and generally patchy alveolar network disease. But in COVID-19, there is large areas of involvement with alveolar hypoxia and microthrombosis, resulting in pulmonary artery hypertension and a cardiac picture that mostly occurs with hypoxemia and raised D-dimers. The scale of alveolar and microvascular inflammation, rather than the systemic viral infection per se, determines the cardiovascular pattern of the disease. Nonetheless, the segmental bronchopulmonary pneumonia could result in the degree of immunothrombosis sufficient to cause a cardiac event, especially in older patients with silent cardiac diseases. Thus, we can see that the ACE2 receptor play a very critical role in the pathology of the SARS infection. This has been clearly demonstrated in the past in the SARS-CoV-1 infection and in other viral infections also. Now let's see what is the pulmonary vascular disease in COVID-19. This is a post-mortem study which was done in 3 patients of SARS infection. In this, we can see that in the electron microscope, we can see the viruses are clinging onto the pneumatocytes, and in the veins, we can see there is intravascular hemorrhage. So there is a intravascular hemorrhage and microthrombi in SARS infections. Now, pulmonary pathology of severe ARDS, this is again a post-mortem study which was done in Canada. In this, they again found that fibrin thrombi, small vessel occlusions, and pulmonary infarctions were seen in as much as 80% of the cases. So, emerged from patients with COVID-19 pneumonia show that a similar pulmonary vascular picture can be seen, which is a blood vessel with wall edema, modest vessel wall immune cell infiltration, hyaline thrombosis, hemorrhagic changes, infarction, prominent capillary thrombosis, cardiomegaly, and right ventricular dilatation. There is an insufficient evidence of coronary myocarditis or coronary vasculitis. Though we find increased cardiac enzymes in COVID-19 and has been taken potentially to represent a myocarditis and cardiac vasculitis because of the viral infection, it is not always true. A role of the ACE2 receptor in the cardiovascular biology predates the link between the pulmonary pathology and COVID-19 pneumonia. The genetic deletion of ACE2 receptor in rodents was already associated with ventricular contractility defects, but these did not result in cardiomyopathy or fibrosis. So COVID-19 shows no clinically significant pathological or infiltrating macrophages in the myocytes or the cardiac endothelium, though there are occasionally reported CD4 T cells in the cardiac myocytes. The cardiac pathology in COVID-19 needs evaluation in view of the known cardiovascular comorbidities, especially in patients with hypertension and pulmonary intravascular coagulopathy, as well as mask-like state with associated hypoxemia and secondary pulmonary arterial hypertension. The hypercytokinemia, that is a part of the mask-like state, would be modified by the ACE2 receptor expression independent of the viremia. The interferon gamma has been shown to downgrade the ACE2 expression on an epithelial cell line. However, this finding was not reported from heart cells. Therefore, the reported changes in the heart tissue, including the endothelium, could represent a cytokinemia and hypoxia effect rather than the direct systemic effect of a viral infection. This is a table showing various pathological studies which have been done on the cardiac involvement in SARS or COVID-19. In this, it is pretty clear that the cardiac involvement is mainly because of the intravascular coagulopathy rather than because of the direct infiltration of inflammatory cells into the myocardium or the endothelium. So there is no direct myocarditis or endothelitis in this particular case. This effect that we see in the cardiovascular system is predominantly because of the pulmonary arterial hypertension because of the microthrombi which are present in the pulmonary circulation. So the laboratory data indicates early pulmonary intravascular coagulopathy. The key early lab finding in patients with COVID-19 pneumonia is an elevated D dimer. There is also elevated cardiac markers, including the brain natriuretic peptide, creatinine kinase, and TROP-T. This do not typically develop because of overt systemic DIC. The finding is reflected in the consistent observation that platelet counts and fibrinogen concentration are not substantially reduced in patients with COVID-19 despite marked increase in the D-dimer concentrations. So the extensive pulmonary inflammation and the thrombosis in COVID-19, what is the pathology? Severe COVID-19 sepsis is associated with a marked mass-like picture and increased inflammatory markers and ferritin concentrations that undoubtedly result in a local activation of pulmonary vascular endothelial cells. The local endothelial cell dysfunction in the pulmonary microvasculature is likely to play an important role in the thromboinflammatory process that ultimately results in COVID-19 vasculopathy, ventilation perfusion mismatch, and a clinical phenotype of refractory ARDS. The endothelial cell disruption, tissue factor expression, and activation of the coagulation cascade will all be progressively exacerbated by the development of a local hypoxia. This is a scheme showing how extensive the COVID-19 lung involvement with large anatomical interface between the infected type 2 pneumocytes, extensive interstitial immunocyte activation similar to macrophage activation syndrome, and the extensive pulmonary microvascular network triggers diffuse pulmonary bed extrinsic inflammation with immunothrombosis. This inflammation causes microthrombotic immunopathology that leads to right ventricular stress and contributes to the mortality. The diffuse type 2 pneumocyte-centric pathology with extension into the interstitium leads to extensive pulmonary macrophage recruitment and activation, resulting in a clinical picture similar to local MAS. Pro-inflammatory and pro-coagulant gain access to the capillary network. The lower pressure nature of the vasculature and the thin vessel walls in and proximal to the alveolar network triggers immunothrombosis by various mechanisms. The vessel wall tissue damage with tissue factor production and direct injury to the small vessels. Vigorous fibrinolytic activity might not keep in check the extensive microthrombi formation, leading to the evolution of pulmonary infarction, hemorrhaging, and pulmonary hypertension induced by pulmonary intravascular coagulopathy, all of which is driven by the COVID-19 inflammation. Thus, the risk factors for cardiovascular disease might increase the likelihood of death in severe COVID-19 inflammation. Thrombosis plays a very integral part in the innate immunity. It is an intravascular effector which reduces the bacterial spread. It has been shown that it helps in localizing the infection and limiting the spread of the pathogens, trapping them within the coagulum. The important role of positive pressure ventilation as a factor driving the release of viral nucleic acids and protein across the damaged endothelial cell barrier is another important factor that needs consideration as a potential iatrogenic contributor to the immunothrombosis and the poor outcomes. Let's see what are the effects of age in the immunothrombosis. Aged patients have more pulmonary damage and lower activation of the type 1 interferon response gene pathways. At the molecular level, there is an exacerbated innate immune response associated with NF-kappa B pathway activation, such as elevated interleukin 8 expression of tissue factor and activates the extrinsic clotting pathway proteins. It is well established that type 1 interferon response decreases with age in humans and also in response to viral infections. The viral or age-related impairment in type 1 interferon production appears to be associated with a second wave of inflammatory cytokine production and tissue factor activation that might substantially contribute to the pulmonary intravascular coagulopathy and increased affection in case of old patients. So what are the implications of this pulmonary intravascular coagulopathy? There is a very important role of anticoagulation. The potential relevance of anti-cardiolipin antibodies in the critical care setting of COVID-19 is well recognized, but we are still uncertain what is the clinical significance and usage of this particular thing. In a recent study of 450 patients in COVID-19, low molecular weight heparin when given for prophylaxis did not confer an survival benefit, but it did have benefit in patients who had a subgroup of high D dimers. And also it may benefit if we give therapeutic doses rather than prophylactic doses. Given the mask-like pathology of COVID-19 pneumonia, the question arises whether the anti-cytokine therapy will ameliorate the diffuse immunothrombosis process associated with severe cases. The effect of coagulation and immune systems is directly linked by interleukin-1 alpha, which is mediated by thrombin. This study shows how the interleukin-1 alpha helps in healing and pathogen elimination, forming a close link between the immune and the coagulation pathway. So do we have any immunotherapy which can impact the anti-cytokines? Anakinra blocks both interleukin-1 alpha and 1 beta pathway and has been used to ameliorate the cytokines. But recently, canakinumab has been used, which is a more specific 1B blocker and may have a better role in blocking the cytokine storm. So the main question is the response an appropriate immune response to the virus, or whether there is a degree of excessive inflammation that we can target as a therapy? The potential survival advantage of drugs pioneered to treat the inflammatory and hyperinflammatory state needs to be viewed from the perspective of a severe diffuse pulmonary immunothrombosis. Given the fact that the ACE2 is expressed in the endothelial cells, the notion of thrombosis outside either pulmonary or DIC needs further consideration. Diffuse alveolar infection, activation of innate immune mechanisms, dysregulation of ACE2 protein expression, marked adaptive antiviral immune responses would contribute to extensive pulmonary immunothrombosis without a clinical evidence of MAS. With this translate into differential effectiveness of any immunosuppressive therapy between MAS-like subgroup of patients or individual without MAS is something which we don't know yet and is still a matter of research. So to summarize, the inflammatory process in the COVID-19 immunothrombosis results in a diffuse alveolar damage and inflammation, diffuse interstitial inflammation, extensive pulmonary macrophage activation, dysregulation of pulmonary innate immune response because of ACE receptor expression downregulation, adaptive immune response to COVID-19, activation of innate immunity in older age-related coagulation cascade changes, and lastly but not the least, mechanical ventilation forcing viral immunostimulatory molecules into the microvasculature, increasing the propensity towards immunothrombosis. So this is basically the summary of the inflammatory process that can be going on in COVID-19 patients who have ARDS. Whether we can develop a therapy for it or not is not known yet, but with this pathophysiology in mind, we can look into various anti-cytokine therapies and non-specific therapies like steroids for reducing the inflammation and treating these patients. We can also look for the use of DVT treatment in these particular cases, especially with low molecular weight heparin or with heparin for reducing the microvascular thrombosis and relieving the ARDS. Thank you for your patience. Check our website for further information.